Good evening. Please take a seat. Did you find the place all right? Oh, so you're familiar with the neighborhood. Okay, that's great. Okay, so I received the intake form that you filled out on our website. Could you confirm your last name and birth date for me? Okay, that's good. So based on what you filled in on the website, you were assigned to me to be your therapist, but this is still sort of an intake conversation where we will kind of broadly cover what you are struggling with, what you are looking for, and based on that conversation, it is possible that I can decide that one of my colleagues would be more suited to help you, or that you remain with me as your therapist. Okay? So I'm just going to be asking you some questions, letting you talk a lot today. But if you have any questions now or while we're talking, feel free to ask them. Okay? How are you feeling being here? Have you sought therapy before, or is this really the first time that you're kind of talking to someone? Okay, well, don't worry. The process usually goes very naturally, even if it feels a little strange at first. We'll figure it out together. Okay, so this is just an exploratory conversation. So that leads me to begin with the question, what brought you to seek help? Okay, so basically you're saying that you want to get your thoughts under control more. Can you explain to me what kind of thoughts? Okay. Okay, you say that this is a voice that talks to you. Do you see this as your own voice, or is it an external voice? Is it maybe the voice of someone that you know, like a parent, or someone else that you hear? Okay, so you see it as your own voice. Okay, and can you kind of tell me what are some things that you hear this voice telling yourself frequently? Okay, so I'm kind of hearing a lot of self-doubt, like self-deprecation, things like, why did you do that? Why did you say that? That was such a stupid thing to do, and things like that. So that makes me wonder, when do you hear these things? When are you saying this to yourself? Is it like in specific moments, or just all the time throughout the day? Okay. Okay, so really what you're saying is, in specific instances, you can very clearly hear it as a voice. For example, the time that you forgot your wallet, or you made a wrong decision in traffic, and when you misunderstood a question someone asked you, you can really hear that voice talking to you and saying, like, why did you do that? That was so dumb. Stop doing that. Things like that. Okay, so in those very specific instances, you very clearly hear the words, but even in other times throughout the day or night, when nothing specific has happened, you still like feel that self-doubt, that, if I can call it that, self-hatred almost even. Okay. And well, I can see, talking about this, that you're having a hard time, that it's very difficult for you to talk about. So if you were to try to express how this makes you feel, how would you describe it? Okay. So, there's mainly like a feeling of hopelessness and of sadness, some frustration and anger as well. Okay. And would you say that the presence of this voice, of these things, these thoughts, is affecting your behavior as well? Okay. Okay, so what I hear you saying is that to avoid these thoughts and to avoid these instances that you get so angry and dissatisfied with yourself and your actions, you've really decided to get out less, interact with people less, and when you do have to interact with people, you've found that you've begun to just talk less in general, so that you have less ammunition basically to become angry at yourself for, and to become so negative about. Okay, so really there's sort of an isolation going on, an avoidance of life, of social situations. Would you say that it is mainly in social situations that this occurs, or is it the same when you make a mistake that no one saw and no one heard? Okay, so it is in both cases, but you would say that it is a lot more painful and a lot more persistent whenever you've been in social situations, so when there was someone else present at the time. But so, for example, if you're at home and you're cooking and you drop the chopping board that you were chopping vegetables on, and they're all over the floor, would you still hear that voice be so angry and dissatisfied at you doing this, or would you be able to shrug that off because no one saw, no one is really bothered but yourself? Okay, so even if you're alone, you get really tough on yourself when you do something wrong. Okay. So we were talking about how it affects your behavior. You mentioned avoiding contact, avoiding people. Or is there anything else with how it affects your behavior? So you would say that you've begun to avoid challenges in general. And what are challenges? What are these things that you avoid? Okay, so you were up for a promotion at work and you had to take some classes for that, but you passed on that. Okay. Any other examples of challenges that you avoid? Okay. So really, I'm gathering that it has a very profound impact on your behavior and your day-to-day life. Dark days, you say? What do you mean by that? Okay. Yes, that does sound like really dark days. That must be very hard for you to go through. How often would you say that such a day occurs? Okay, so not that often according to you, but it is increasing. And that is what kind of pushed you to get some help? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, do you have any idea when this started? Is there a certain time that you began to do this? Just as long as you remember. Okay. And how long is that? Do you have like a certain earliest memory or age or where you know that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's actually quite young. I mean that means that this began to form an issue even before puberty, which is the time when normally people really have trouble dealing with insecurity and self-doubt and things like that. Okay. But so in all that time, you feel like this is something that you've been living with, but what's different now? What's been exacerbating it? What has been increasing these dark days and made you reach out for help? Okay, so that really made you want to make a change. Okay, so a very important question: is there any time that you feel like the voice isn't there? Well, or maybe any time that you feel you have it more under control. Okay. Okay, so basically when you wake up you feel like you get a little moment of relief where your brain is still catching up, is still warming up, is still waking up, and it's not like the second you wake up you are like bombarded with these thoughts. You get a moment of relief. Okay. Now that we landed on the topic of sleep, is your sleep in any way affected by this? Okay, so you do have nightmares as well. And do you have any recurring dreams, recurring themes in your dreams? Okay. All those really sound like stress dreams. Okay. well. I feel like I'm able to kind of form a picture of what the problem is, what brought you here. I think it is very, very good that you reached out to get some help, because it seems like a very, very difficult and painful way to go through daily life. We can do better than this. You mentioned that there's a feeling of hopelessness, and I get where that comes from, but you did reach out, you did get some help, so that means that there's still this little inkling of hope left, and we're going to work with that, and we can definitely help you get this under control, okay? So I'm very glad that you ended up here, because we're definitely going to be able to help you out with that. Based on what I heard today, I feel like we can work on this together. If that is something that you feel okay with, you've been able to talk to me right now, so you also have probably an idea of whether or not you would like to continue working with me, or maybe prefer someone else. That's no problem as well. Okay, that's good. But anytime you can think about it and let us know through the website or through a phone call what you would prefer to do. So if it's okay with you, I'm already going to give you just a little bit of homework in preparation of our next appointment. So I'm going to give you this notebook to take with you, and what I would like you to try to do is become very aware of this voice. I want you to recognize the moment it starts. So in the beginning, that's going to be a little bit hard. It'll be running, it'll be going, and then you'll suddenly realize, oh, I'm doing it again. But you'll get more and more able to immediately recognize and realize that you're doing it again. So I want you to become very aware of it, and write down the circumstance in which you're in at the moment that you recognize it. So just what situation you're in, what just happened, what you're doing, basically what brought it on. So just briefly write down what brought it on, what circumstance you're in, and what the voice is telling you, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Okay? So I want you to do this just starting from tomorrow up until our next appointment, just kind of any time throughout the day, but I want you to pick 3 days where you're really going to devote extra attention to it. Maybe a weekend day where you're not working, or something like that. Or maybe a day where you're working, or a day where you know that you'll be seeing a lot of people, and you know that there will be a lot of opportunities for the voice to start in on you. So 3 days where you're really going to devote a lot of attention to recognizing it as quickly as possible and taking note of what is happening and what you're hearing. And that is just going to help us out so much in figuring out just exactly how the process works, what happens, and what you're dealing with. And when we know what we're dealing with, we can start working behaviorally in getting it under control, and just changing that pattern. Okay? So that's just a little bit of homework that I'm going to give you. And I just want to tell you that I'm so proud of you for being here and for getting that help. Well, it's not surprising to hear you say that, because you did mention that any social interaction kind of opens you up to that voice and that self-doubt and that self-hatred. So this is a social interaction. It's something new, it's something difficult, it's something where you're making yourself very vulnerable. So it's not surprising that you're already feeling a lot of that self-doubt right now and kind of beating yourself up over the things that you've said or the way that you've expressed yourself. But let me just tell you that I feel that there's nothing you could have done any better than you did. You've done absolutely nothing wrong. You've been very forthcoming, very open, and very eloquent in answering all of my questions. It's very clear that you're a very aware person, and you're very capable of expressing what you think and feel. So from my side of the conversation, I can only think of positives. So I really want you to take that in, take that home with you, and just whenever you think back of this conversation, just think back of me, my voice saying, "You did great, I am proud, and there is hope." Okay? Okay. Great. So for now, I'm going to see you very soon. This was just exploratory conversation. It's a little shorter than a regular session. We touched on several topics, but we didn't really dive into anything particular, which is what we would do more in a regular session. So our next appointment, I would like that to be within 1 or a maximum of 2 weeks, if that's okay with you. Okay? Okay, so you can just tell that to the receptionist, and she'll book you in with me and take care of the payment and everything. Okay? Again, you did great. You made me very proud, and we are going to work on this together.